In the late 13th and early 14th centuries, the Teutonic Order evolved from a crusading brotherhood into a centralized military state. Originally formed to protect Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land, the Order gradually relocated its power base to the Baltic region. There, it constructed fortified castles, imposed German administrative systems, and justified territorial expansion through the language of crusade and conversion. For decades, Lithuania stood apart as Europe's last major pagan realm. This status provided the Teutonic Order with ideological legitimacy. However, in 1387, Lithuania's official conversion to Christianity fundamentally changed the political landscape. From that point forward, continued Teutonic warfare could no longer be credibly framed as a religious crusade. The dynastic union between Poland and Lithuania in 1386 reshaped Eastern Europe. It created a political entity larger than any other contemporary European state. Though initially fragile, the union combined Polish heavy cavalry with Lithuanian mobility, forming a military partnership capable of challenging the Teutonic Order on equal terms. The Polish king Władysław II Jagiełło governed through patience rather than aggression. He avoided impulsive engagements and prioritized coordination over personal glory. His leadership style emphasized endurance, discipline, and careful timing, traits that would prove decisive during the longest and most critical moments of the battle. Vytautas, Grand Duke of Lithuania, was the operational opposite of Jagiełło. He favored speed, initiative, and direct pressure. His leadership was most visible at the tactical level, particularly in cavalry maneuvering and battlefield adaptability. The Teutonic Grand Master believed decisive action could shatter the alliance before it fully coordinated. His strategies centered on offensive momentum, assuming discipline and superior knightly warfare would prevail. The Polish army was structured around regional banners, each led by experienced nobles. Heavily armored knights formed the core, supported by retainers and infantry. Their role was to absorb pressure and maintain cohesion. Lithuanian and allied units emphasized mobility. Light cavalry enabled rapid engagement and disengagement. Ruthenian forces added manpower, while Tatar auxiliaries introduced skirmishing tactics unfamiliar to Western knights. The Teutonic army represented one of the most disciplined fighting forces of its era. Elite heavy cavalry formed the striking arm, reinforced by crossbowmen and mercenaries from across Europe. The armies met on open farmland in midsummer. The lack of natural defenses meant no side could rely on terrain alone. Heat, fatigue, and coordination would influence the battle as much as weaponry. When Lithuanian forces pulled back early in the fighting, medieval chroniclers described chaos. Modern historians remain divided, suggesting either panic or an intentional tactical withdrawal designed to draw Teutonic forces out of formation. On the morning of 15 July 1410, both armies stood ready, yet the battle did not begin immediately. For hours, the forces faced each other in silence.
The Teutonic knights waited deliberately in full armor under the summer sun, while the Polish-Lithuanian army remained partly sheltered. This delay was not confusion, it was psychological pressure, testing endurance, discipline, and morale before steel ever met steel. During this standoff, the Teutonic Order sent 2 unsheathed swords to the Polish-Lithuanian camp. In medieval custom, this symbolized a formal challenge, but it also carried a message of provocation. King Władysław's Jagiełło accepted the swords calmly. The moment later became legendary, but at the time it simply marked the point of no return. The battle opened with a charge by Lithuanian cavalry. These units were lighter and more mobile than the heavily armored Teutonic knights. Their task was not to break the line outright, but to disrupt formation and draw the knights into motion. The Teutonic response was immediate, a disciplined counterattack by heavy cavalry. Under pressure, Lithuanian forces began to fall back. Contemporary sources disagree on what happened next. Some describe a complete rout. Modern historians suggest a mixed retreat, part panic, part tactical withdrawal. What is certain is that this movement pulled the Teutonic knights out of their strongest formation. With the Lithuanians pushed back, the weight of the battle shifted to the Polish center. Here the fighting became slow, brutal, and intensely personal. Heavy cavalry clashed at close range, where armor, endurance, and discipline mattered more than speed. For a time, the outcome of the battle remained uncertain. King Jagiełło resisted the instinct to commit all his forces at once. He waited, watching as Teutonic units became fully engaged and increasingly stretched. Only then did he send in fresh Polish reserves, a controlled, disciplined decision that would prove decisive. The Teutonic Grand Master Ulrich von Jungingen personally entered the fight. Leading a direct charge, he attempted to break the enemy line by force of leadership and courage. Instead, he was surrounded and killed, a moment that shattered Teutonic command and morale. Later in the battle, Lithuanian cavalry returned to the field. This time they struck the flanks and rear of the Teutonic forces. What had begun as a frontal clash now became an encirclement. Without central leadership, the Teutonic resistance collapsed. Some units surrendered, others fought on in isolated pockets. By the afternoon, organized resistance had ended. The battlefield belonged to the Polish-Lithuanian alliance.
The Polish-Lithuanian forces inflicted severe losses on the Teutonic Order. Thousands of knights, soldiers, and mercenaries were killed, and many high-ranking officers were captured. The aftermath was grim but organized. Prisoners were systematically escorted and key leaders identified for ransom. This structured handling of prisoners reflected the alliance's discipline and military pragmatism. Despite their overwhelming battlefield success, the Polish-Lithuanian forces did not immediately capture Malbork, the Teutonic capital. Exhaustion, stretched supply lines, and strategic caution delayed the siege. This pause allowed the surviving Teutonic units to regroup, preventing a total collapse of the order and ensuring that political and military pressure remained for years to come.
Malbork Castle remained unconquered despite the victory. Its massive stone walls, well-stocked garrisons, and strategic location made a rapid assault impossible. The delay exposed logistical limits of medieval warfare. Even a victorious army could not easily project power over long distances or heavily fortified sites.
While the Teutonic Order had suffered a severe defeat, its survival ensured that it remained a regional power. The alliance's inability to press immediately allowed the order to regroup, rebuild defenses, and maintain a political presence, highlighting the limitations of medieval military campaigns.
The Treaty of Thorn imposed reparations on the Teutonic Order. The compensation, while significant, allowed the order to survive financially and politically. Minor territorial concessions were made, but the core Teutonic holdings remained intact. Both sides compromised to ensure regional stability and avoid further conflict. The treaty stabilized the region temporarily, demonstrating that battlefield victories did not always translate into total political dominance. Both Poland-Lithuania and the Order adjusted their long-term strategies accordingly.
The Teutonic Order never fully recovered from Grunwald. Though it remained a political entity, its military dominance was permanently weakened. Over decades, leadership crises, manpower losses, and repeated uprisings eroded their control. Even their strongest castles became increasingly symbolic rather than practical, crumbling under neglect, understaffed, and overextended. The Order's influence shrank gradually, creating opportunities for Poland-Lithuania and other neighboring powers. In contrast, Poland-Lithuania emerged stronger. The alliance expanded its influence over trade routes, fortified towns, and diplomatic negotiations. Military lessons learned at Grunwald, such as disciplined cavalry coordination and use of reserves, were applied in future campaigns, consolidating power. Polish-Lithuanian cavalry, Ruthenian infantry, and Lithuanian horse archers continued to evolve their tactics, reflecting the experience gained during the battle. Grunwald affected culture and politics deeply. Chroniclers and artwork commemorated the victory, embedding it into national memory. Meanwhile, the Teutonic Order's chroniclers attempted to explain defeat, shaping a narrative of resilience but acknowledging strategic failure. The battle also influenced diplomacy. Neighboring states treated Poland-Lithuania as a decisive regional power, while the Order was increasingly cautious in engagements, with their reduced credibility evident across the Baltic. The strategies and tactics of Grunwald became reference points in medieval military studies. Flanking maneuvers, reserve management, and coordination between infantry and cavalry were examined across Europe. Polish-Lithuanian cavalry, Ruthenian infantry, and Lithuanian horse archers continued to evolve their tactics, reflecting the experience gained during the battle. The political landscape of Eastern Europe shifted permanently. Poland-Lithuania became the dominant power, influencing treaties, diplomacy, and regional conflicts for decades. The Teutonic Order survived, but had to operate cautiously, negotiating rather than enforcing, with their reduced credibility evident across the Baltic. Centuries after the battle, Grunwald became legend. Artists and chroniclers exaggerated heroism, depicting kings, knights, and cavalry as almost superhuman. Yet the historical reality was disciplined planning, coordination, and human endurance. The myths, however, played a critical role in national identity, becoming symbols of unity, resilience, and courage for Poland and Lithuania. The battle highlights the value of leadership and timing.
King Jagiełło's control of reserves, Vytautas' tactical flexibility, and the coordinated assault on the flanks reflect strategic genius rather than luck. Even centuries later, these principles inform military and organizational studies. Patience, observation, and incremental commitment can determine outcomes more than sheer force. Grunwald shaped memory and identity. Memorials, paintings, literature, and festivals celebrated the battle. It serves as a case study of alliance, strategic planning, and endurance. Understanding the historical truth beyond the myths offers lessons about leadership, coordination, and consequences of overconfidence. The battle reminds us that great victories are not solely due to heroism, but to preparation, discipline, and coordination. Every commander, soldier, and participant played a role. The consequences rippled through centuries, influencing politics, culture, and military thought across Europe. Thank you for watching this detailed exploration of the Battle of Grunwald. History survives through study, remembrance, and reflection. The lessons of leadership, coordination, and human resilience remain timeless.